I'll say it as a fan and nothing else. The national media is burying our defense before the season even starts. And that level of disrespect is exactly what this Chicago Bears team needs to fuel a comeback. Analysts are projecting this unit to be the worst in the league, but Dennis Allen is betting on a massive overhaul of our defensive line fundamentals to prove the doubters wrong. It is fascinating because the success of this entire year rests on whether our pass rush and run defense can finally develop in tandem. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your name and city in the comments so I know who is repping the team today. Let's get into it. The Chicago Bears face a difficult reality regarding the defensive unit as we look toward the 2026 season. After last year ended with a painful loss to the Rams where our defense failed to hold the line despite favorable field position, anxiety is mounting throughout the fan base. It is easy to blame Caleb Williams for that late interception, but the defense allowed the season to slip away during that final drive. Now, defensive coordinator Dennis Allen faces significant pressure to improve a unit that DVOA currently ranks as the worst in the league. Robert Mays of The Athletic recently challenged this bleak projection, suggesting the team should be healthier and better than these rankings imply. Yet even a modest leap to the middle of the pack places immense burden on our young offense. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. If we fail to stop the run or generate a consistent pass rush, our championship aspirations might vanish before the winter months arrive. Allen has been preaching fundamental techniques to players like Gervon Dexter and Dayo Odeyingbo, hoping to move past last year's struggles where we ranked 27th against the run and tied for 22nd in total sacks. Drawing from his time coaching the Saints, Allen knows that building a dominant defense is a slow, piecemeal process that rarely happens overnight. While we possess established talent in Montez Sweat and a promising prospect in Austin Booker, the lack of depth across the defensive line remains a glaring concern for many of us who remember being carved up by opposing runners last season. If Allen cannot engineer a turnaround similar to his successful tenure in New Orleans, we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. Can the offense truly carry this team if our pass rush remains one of the primary question marks entering the upcoming regular season? The most alarming reality facing our Chicago Bears is that DVOA projections currently rank this defense as the absolute worst unit in the entire league for the upcoming season. While analysts like Robert Mays have challenged that grim outlook, the underlying concern stems from a haunting performance against the Los Angeles Rams in last year's playoffs. Despite Caleb Williams suffering a costly interception, the game remained winnable until our defense surrendered the season-ending drive from the Rams' own 22-yard line. This collapse exposed a vulnerability that Dennis Allen is desperately trying to correct through a back-to-basics approach. The truth is, Allen is betting everything on fundamental technique rather than relying on individual stardom to fix a group that finished 27th against the run and tied for 22nd in sacks with only 35. Behind closed doors, the coaching staff likely understands that defensive success requires a patient, multi-year build rather than a quick fix. We must look at history to manage our expectations, as Allen faced similar growing pains during his tenure with the New Orleans Saints. It took until his third year there to achieve a dominant, top-tier defense, meaning we might be waiting another full season before this unit truly controls the line of scrimmage. While the Saints lacked a secondary pass rusher for years, we have the advantage of Montez Sweat and a developing prospect in Austin Booker, which offers a glimmer of hope for a faster turnaround. However, we cannot ignore the depth concerns at defensive tackle and end that haunt our roster right now. If our young core does not improve their coordination as a single unit, our high-octane offense will be forced to carry the load entirely alone. Achieving a middle-of-the-pack defense would be a massive victory for this team, providing the necessary stability to finally reach our full potential in this competitive conference. The specter of last year's late-game defensive collapses is a heavy shadow hanging over our upcoming season, and addressing these fundamental cracks is the defining challenge for this organization. We all remember how the season ended against the Rams, with our defense failing to hold the line after a critical turnover. Now here's the thing about our current outlook. As defensive coordinator Dennis Allen works to sharpen the techniques of players like Montez Sweat, Austin Booker, Dayo Odeyingbo, Grady Jarrett, Gervon Dexter, and Shamar Turner, Improving from a unit that ranked 27th against the run and 22nd in sacks requires more than just raw talent. It demands a disciplined, unified front. If the defensive line fails to contain opposing run games or put pressure on quarterbacks, the burden on our young offense will become unsustainable. We are looking at a roster where the pass rush and interior defensive line remain the biggest question marks, potentially forcing our high-powered offense to play perfect football every single week to secure victories. This reality directly impacts our standing within the NFC North, where staying competitive against the Lions, Packers, and Vikings is non-negotiable. If we cannot manufacture a consistent pass rush, our secondary will be constantly exposed regardless of their individual talent. The historical trend from Allen's time with the Saints suggests that a complete defensive transformation is rarely an overnight success story, often requiring multiple off-seasons to reach a dominant level. Whether we can accelerate that timeline this year will dictate our postseason viability. We need the defense to bridge the gap and become a league-average unit at minimum, as relying entirely on the offense to bail us out is a dangerous gamble that we simply cannot afford to take if we want to play well into the month of January. The upside to Dennis Allen taking charge of our defense is rooted in his historical ability to build a dominant unit through patience and fundamental discipline. We saw how his system eventually propelled the Saints into a top-tier defensive force. And if players like Dio Odeyingbo, Grady Jarrett, Gervin Dexter, and Shemar Turner embrace his technical requirements, we could finally see the consistent pressure we have been missing. This is where it gets real, because the risk of such a long-term approach is palpable. Relying on a multi-year maturation process can be a tough pill to swallow for us fans who want immediate results, especially when DVOA currently projects us as the league-worst defense. Robert Mays of The Athletic has openly challenged these low expectations, suggesting that health and better execution should logically vault us into the middle of the pack. However, others remain skeptical about our current personnel, specifically pointing to glaring question marks at defensive tackle, cornerback, and the edge position beyond Montez Sweat and Austin Booker. My honest take here is that labeling this group as the worst in the league feels remarkably short-sighted and ignores the sheer talent we have in the secondary, even if they were banged up last year. While it is true that Allen took several seasons to iron out the wrinkles in his previous stops, I suspect our transformation will be faster because our roster is starting from a much more stable foundation than he had in the past. We do not need a top 5 unit to win big. We just need a respectable, fundamentally sound defense that avoids the catastrophic breakdowns we witnessed during that playoff exit against the Rams. If the line can just stop the run and generate pressure as one cohesive unit, our explosive offense will have plenty of room to finish the job for us this season. Looking at the broader trajectory for our franchise, we are clearly in a patient building phase under Ben Johnson, mirroring the long-term defensive refinement Dennis Allen oversaw in New Orleans. While DVOA projections currently place our defense at the bottom of the league, we should remain cautiously optimistic rather than fearful. We possess key pieces like Montez Sweat and a promising Austin Booker, and the emphasis on fundamental techniques over individual heroics suggests a smarter, more cohesive approach than last year. And that changes everything regarding our expectations for this upcoming season. We should feel confident that this group is better than the national narrative suggests, especially considering they will be healthier and more experienced in this system. If our defensive line can commit to moving as one unit to prevent quarterbacks from stepping up into lanes, we will see significant improvement. This team is at a crossroads where the defensive growth must match the offensive potential to truly compete for a title in the next 2 years. It is a process, and while we might want a quick fix, history shows that consistent, coordinated growth is the only way to reach a championship level of performance on that side of the ball. We need to trust the coaching staff as they work through these growing pains to establish a truly formidable unit that can finally close out games when it matters most in the fourth quarter. Do you believe the Bears' defensive line will surpass 40 sacks this season, given the focus on fundamental technique? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Bear down. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching as we break down every play and keep you updated on all the latest developments in Chicago this year.